frustrated by how we got to this point, all the stops, starts, his pathetic handling of this situation, his pathetic inability to be transparent, his pathetic inability to answer a straight question. Even that Sports Business Journal thing, John Orand, or however you pronounce it, threw him a softball at about 5 miles per hour, and he couldn't answer that, and then got into this thing. Well, we've got 14 colleges with 14 disparate ways of looking at life, and certainly there's going to be disagreements, and but that's what makes us great. Didn't answer the freaking question, not one bit, not one time, hasn't yet, probably never will.
I kind of want to jump in here with just the fact that the deck was always stacked against football happening. Because what happens, let's just play, let's take it at face value that a vote happened or whatever. What if it were 8-6 to play football? Would the 6 teams that voted not to play football be like, oh, okay, we'll just go along. Our fears don't mean anything. Or would they have just said, well, up yours, we're not playing or whatever? I don't think there was ever a situation of where this was going to work out per se. And you know what? It's so easy to bag on Rutgers and Maryland or whatever, but they put, it's like, we're trying not to be political, but the whole talk of packing the courts and putting more people on, they diluted the votes, and it just got into an even worse situation. And the worst part of it was, it is my belief, and until I am told otherwise, I'm not backing off of this. Kevin Warren walked into there fully intending on punting until spring, at best, punting until spring. And I was told that the way things kind of went down, it was a systematic beatdown of anybody that stood their way with opposition. And then by the time that you break the wills of the people that are against you, it's easy to have this overwhelming consensus because you browbeat them. So I really think that there were a lot of agendas in play here, and it all starts with the head guy in charge.
So, and if there is 8-6 want to play, that's not a consensus. So if you don't have a consensus to play, I guess that's a consensus not to play, just by proxy. And then you just build off of that and you talk people out of it. And I think that's what has happened. And I do wonder, like, if instead of Rutgers and Maryland, if Jim Delaney had added, say, Texas and Oklahoma, like, what would the vote be there? Do we really think we wouldn't be playing if you added 2 football programs instead of 2 East Coast
entities?
Yes. Like, if you were worried more about football than footprint, considering, like, what footprint did they actually bring that you didn't already have? But that's, I guess, neither here nor there. I just think if you would, it would be an interesting vote, a better vote, a more football friendly vote if they had added 2 football programs instead of Maryland and Rutgers, and then we wouldn't be in this mess until maybe like October when the season gets shut down or something like that. And we'll see. We'll see if everybody else can pull it off. I'm still skeptical of that happening. But I did find it interesting that in Kevin Warren's open letter, he mentioned how the entire time we've been going day by day saying, like, we don't know for sure if we're going to play. We've always been patient. We've always been taking it day by day and going and being patient. And then what? You shut it down rather than be patient. And so, yeah, you were patient and everybody's been patient, and then you stop being patient and shut it down. And that's what everybody's had the issue with.
Talking Ohio State football each and every week, by extension, Big Ten, by extension, the nation, and they've never been so connected and disconnected at the same time. Disconnected in their decisions, but connected in everybody wanting to see college football in its totality, with the major 5 conferences competing for national championship, something we apparently won't see here in the fall of 2020. Maybe by extension, maybe the only thing that comes out of this that is good for the football fan is being able to see big-time college football potentially from September all the way to May. But David Cottrell made a point here about the perception of the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12 playing a legit championship. Is that going to be compromised versus the Big 10 and the Pac-12? I touched upon this last week. I think we all did. Here's my thought. The Big Ten has to hope for a season to become a debacle and there to be no conclusion to an ACC, SEC, and Big 12 season. Otherwise, they look bad because they start playing football in January, and everybody's going to be like, why couldn't you have played with everybody else. From the perception of a championship, and if it's legit process, there are going to be certain people that are going to be like, oh, Washington State didn't compete, it's not legit, to an extreme. But in this, let's be reasonable about this. As I stated last week, to the average fan, and it's justified, who matters here? Ohio State, maybe Penn State a little bit, maybe Michigan a little bit, maybe in Oregon a little bit, but basically Ohio State is the one school, the one team, the one program that everybody looks to across the nation that has a brain concerning college football and says they are a legitimate national championship contender. And we live in a gold medal conscious society. They don't care about the silvers and the bronze. They don't care about the minor bowl games or even, sadly, about conference championships much anymore. It's about who's going to be in that playoff and who can compete. Well, the thought process, and it's been justified, is Ohio State's the only one that's been taken away. All right, I hate to throw these numbers at Big Ten fans, and it's really not even about the Big Ten. It's being playing poorly on the field. It's about the Big Ten being excluded. So what to you guys is more legit? If in 2018, as it were, the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, and Notre Dame played a college football playoff, excluding the Big 10 and the Pac-12, who actually played a season and had champions to be selected, and in Ohio State's case, had a very similar, if not a better resume than Oklahoma to say, we're here, but they weren't invited. It's not a playoff system. It's an invitational. They weren't invited. Is that more legit? Or 2 years later, if those three conferences plus Notre Dame being in the ACC this year, are saying we forfeit. They're basically, in essence, saying we forfeit. We're not participating. I would think that that's actually more legitimate because they're at least making the decision, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, we're not participating. In 2018, the decision was made for them. We played a season. We want to participate in the playoff, but we're not allowed. We're not invited. In this situation, well, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, they're forfeiting their participation. So we're playing a championship. And then you look at the numbers that have been compiled since 2015, since Ohio State won the inaugural national championship, where I ran through the SEC and Clemson. They are 15-6 combined in the playoff. That is magnified by saying that the SEC has only lost to Clemson. All 6 games are Clemson losses. Clemson has only lost to the SEC. No one from the Pac-12, the Big 10, or the Big 12 has beaten either entities. So can they market all that and say, last 5 college football players, we're winning these anyway, so we're the ones participating. So do you think it's legit? We think it's legit, and we're going to sell it as legit. Meanwhile, Ohio State clobbering someone from the Pac-12, or maybe if the Pac-12 can't even put sports on the field until January 1st, 2020 anyway, that's been their decision. Who's to say they can get anything together by then anyway? The Big Ten could be playing in a vacuum by themselves.
I think it'll be legit. It'll certainly be claimed by everybody, or not everybody, but the majority will be legit because you're still talking, I mean, eliminating the Big Ten, eliminating Ohio State, you basically cut out the middleman. And now it's just, it's Alabama and Clemson, just as everybody suspected, and there's no longer a mystery. I do think it is interesting. Pete Thamel was just reporting a few minutes ago that the proposal now would be to have all fall athletes not have this year count, no matter how many games they play. So that tells you what the NCAA thinks of this year. And granted, they don't decide the college football championship, but they don't view this as a legitimate year at all, or else they would not be in line to just give everybody an extra year of eligibility, even if they're playing 10, 11, 12 games this year, which if that happens, I mean, I don't know how you could give somebody another year of eligibility, but clearly the NCAA views this as a fake year, basically, if they go through with that ruling.
I think that ruling does make sense, however, at least in the preseason, because Alabama, Clemson, whoever, SEC, ACC could get into the season and they could play 6 games. And then you're looking at it and say, okay, well, you played 6 games, got to ding you for a year. So, and it also protects the Big Ten and the Pac-12 schools who are going to play theoretically a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 game season, whatever it may be in the spring. Theoretically, on paper, as of today, on somebody's legal pad, they've scratched out what they. I just cracked myself up thinking about this. I mean, my wife was asking me about this, and I'm like, who's going to care? This is like 1995 baseball coming back after they canceled the World Series. I mean, who is going to care? Maybe by the fall when it's real, and there'll be fans in the stands. It'll be home games. But this is going to be a TV product at Lucas Oil Stadium. Maybe they'll send the band or just use click effects. Who the hell knows? I mean, I'm dumbfounded by the whole idea. They're doing this to salvage some last remnant of their television money, which was roughly $54 million a school. Maybe they can salvage 40 million of that. The game should do pretty good ratings if you figure their competition is Xavier versus Creighton basketball that nobody watches.